Everything felt wonderful. You were on cloud nine. You thought you had your forever person. And then suddenly, somewhere between 3 to 8 months, your dismissive avoidant partner is either abruptly discarding you, pulling the rug from under your feet out of nowhere, or they're pulling away, getting more cold, more distant, less communication, canceling plans, but not telling you what's going on. And suddenly, this person that seemed all in with you, the person that seemed so sure about you, that you thought was your forever person, is completely shattering your heart, and you don't know why, and you're wondering what it is that you did wrong. This is a very common pattern with dismissive avoidance. Most will do it. Not all. Some will go longer into relationships, but this is what happens most of the time, but it's not your fault. And let me explain why this happens. Dismissive avoidants are people that have extreme wounds and insecurities around emotional intimacy, vulnerability, closeness, any kind of conflict or disagreements, and expectations that show up in a relationship. And this stems from profound, consistent childhood emotional neglect. The problem is most of them aren't even aware that they were neglected in childhood. Growing up in households where you don't talk about feelings, their own feelings were rejected and dismissed. So what they learned is to suppress their emotions. It was the only way to stay safe as a child. They also personalized that neglect, growing up to feel a deep wound of shame, like they're defective and unlovable. So they put up these walls around their heart to protect themselves because their fear, and it's largely subconscious, but there's some that are consciously aware of it. The fear is, if I lower my walls and I let my partner in, my partner is going to figure out that I'm defective and they're going to reject me. So closeness gives them so much anxiety. They feel unsafe being vulnerable and emotionally intimate with another person because their emotional brain associates it with rejection and even abandonment. So early in the relationship, it's the shared fantasy. It's a fantasy world. It's not a real relationship. They're getting all this validation from you, and their dopamine levels are sky high. Dopamine is the reward hormone that causes infatuation. So they're infatuated. They're loving how you make them feel. And that dopamine is masking their insecurities. So they're all in. They think you are the answer to all their problems, that they finally got it right, that you're the one. But the brain cannot maintain that elevated level of dopamine forever. That's why the honeymoon phase of a relationship usually lasts somewhere between 3 to 8 months, give or take. Because the honeymoon phase ends when dopamine comes down. And it comes down in everybody. But for healthy partners, they're bonding during this phase with oxytocin. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone. But dismissive avoidants are not bonding. They have these internal walls that block oxytocin bonding. And the lack of exposure to oxytocin in childhood limits their capacity to bond. Now, they can grow that capacity with therapy and choices and things like that. But if they're not self-aware and not working on themselves, they have a very limited capacity to bond. So the dopamine comes down, there's no oxytocin taking over, and all that's left are their insecurities. And by this point, the relationship is getting closer. It's getting more real. It's getting more intimate. Maybe there's been some disagreement, some conflict, escalating commitment, which is scary to them because commitment, well, if you commit to somebody, you have to be vulnerable. That means rejection. Now, they can commit to a person that's emotionally unavailable, but that's for a different video. So there's expectations too. You're expecting them to show up for you, expecting them to communicate, expecting them to advance the relationship and put in effort, spend time with you. It's all very triggering to them. So now their insecurities are at front and center. What they've learned to do is to suppress emotions. That's how they kept safe. So they take the remaining feelings they have for you, they bury them, they suppress them, and they stuff them away. But they don't really look within, so they're not even aware that they're doing this. So they think they've fallen out of love, that they've just lost the spark, that something's missing, and it must be because you're the wrong person. So they'll come up with any excuse under the sun to say that, well, the chemistry isn't there, the spark isn't there, and you're blindsided because just days before they're telling you how wonderful you are, and it doesn't make sense and you're blaming yourself. But it's actually because the relationship got real. It got close. It was no longer a fantasy, which was triggering their wounds. Because keep in mind, dismissive avoidants get triggered by healthy relationship behaviors, not toxic ones. And now They're doing what they've learned to do: avoid, run away from the problem, not deal with it, not look within, and to find any excuse they can to justify it. Because if they were to look within and take accountability, they'd have to confront the inner shame. So, what they're really doing is not running away from you, they're running away from themselves and their own wounds. And by being a healthy, loving, emotionally available partner, you are forcing them to confront the things inside themselves that are lacking, that they don't want to confront. So it became easier to run away, stick their head in the sand, and just tell themselves that they've lost feelings. It wasn't because you're doing anything wrong, it's because you're doing everything right. And that's why in that time window, they tend to run away. And they tend to run away from partners that truly care about them and love them, not ones that are toxic and emotionally unavailable.